Hello everyone! Pineaaronapple here with the first episode of Doctor Who Series 13, or Flux, Chapter 1, The Halloween Apocalypse. This episode continues from Revolution of the Daleks, although probably with adventures in between, having the Doctor staying with Yaz after losing Ryan, Graham, and Jack for probably the 20th time. This season is quite different to the rest of New Who, being a continuous story over many parts, much like many classic stories, or even Trial of a Time Lord. Also debuting this season is Dan. Dan the Man, Dan the Plastering Man, with his van. Our new Series 13 companion. Without further ado, let's get into Flux, Chapter 1, The Halloween Apocalypse. We start in the cold open, where Yaz and the Doctor have been taken prisoner by Carvanista over an acid planet. This scene is quite funny, although I have to say the CGI is very hit and miss. Some shots are great, but others make me want to throw up on the screen so I don't have to look at the bad effects. Carvanista makes some threats against Earth, and we get some great callbacks to both older Doctors and companions. Chased by drones, they fly their very improbable sticks back to the TARDIS, who had carefully laid out a trampoline and bed for them to land on. Oh god, the shippers are going to use this one, aren't they? The Doctor follows Carvanista, and we get our credits. I have to say, they don't seem too different from last season, although the addition of Flux does look natural. With our first tangent for another episode, in Liverpool 1820, Joseph Williamson is our first historical character, using a large workforce to build his tunnels, while Mr. Stonehouse here berates him for his random and eccentric work. But Williamson is a little too enthusiastic, basically calling Stonehouse stupid as he makes vague threats about incoming doom. Seemingly still in Liverpool around 201 years later, indicated by our friend from the last special, Orange Text, our new companion, Dan Lewis, leads a tour group around the Liverpool Museum. And he is great at it, although his one-armed friend Diane takes him outside, telling him that if he keeps hijacking tours with his innocent enthusiasm, he will be banned. Dan makes a great first impression, and I love his bubbly enthusiasm, paired with sometimes dry humour. Him and Diane clearly have a will-they-won't-they relationship, and agree to meet for drinks, although it seems he has a notoriety to his name for being late. The Doctor and Yaz have trouble with the TARDIS, and our new baddie, seemingly named Swarm, hijacks a mental connection with the Doctor and shows her a flashback, where two members of the Division, yes, that old Gallifreyan Spec Ops unit from last season that featured Gat, the best female Doctor, and that guy I don't remember the name of, check up on a prisoner from the dawn of the universe, who berates the two agents and escapes, killing them both with fantastic effects and imposition. Swarm returns to his sleeker form with a great transformation, and I have to say, he is one of the most inventive-looking baddies of the Chibnall run. I'm not sure how I feel about him ending the message to the Doctor with trick or treat, but if he is going to continue being scary yet camp, I can see myself enjoying his screen time. Back in the TARDIS, she seems to be taking damage of some sort, melting, or more accurately, rotting. They arrive on Earth on Halloween, where a trick-or-treat from Yaz gives the line the most shocking response I've ever seen in film. Dan finishes his work at the food bank and, refusing to take some food for himself, goes home, although it seems that a drone and creature of some sort are surveying the scene. Once home, Dan is visited by some kids giving the last of his candy out, only to be visited by this bloke in a great and funny scene. A very good choice for marketing, as this scene was released ahead of the episode. It seems that Dan is on hard times, only having what seems like 4 uncooked pieces of spaghetti to his name. But coming to see him is Carvanista, with a great-looking weapon. I have to say, on the whole, I like Carvanista, and his design is great, and paired with Dan delivers some great comedy. Although, I think it's time for 100 fan theories on why Carvanista's mind control won't work on Dan. Carvanista kidnaps Dan with a better effect than on the acid planet, as the Doctor and Yaz arrive. I have to say I was hoping that this season would mean a less egregious use of the Sonic, but it seems to be a constant in Whittaker's run that she spends a quarter of the episode waving it around in the air. Not a big issue, but it certainly is noticeable, and I'm sad it wasn't corrected. Our duo enter Dan's house and find evidence of Carvanista's work. Using a found laptop, the Doctor tracks Carvanista's ship, seeing that 7 million more ships from Carvanista's people are on their way. They then figure out the more important question. Why does the monetarily challenged Dan have such a smart laptop? The same thing my mother pointed out while watching. This was a trap from Carvanista, sending the two running out of the house, only for it to shrink into a toy. I love how this era does the shrinking effects, like with the Master last season, turning people into little dolls. The accompanying toilet joke is a little jarring, but anything is better than the internet cutaway from Resolution. In the Arctic Circle, these two funny characters are given some sort of message, but in the face of their apparent mission, they destroy the warning to continue their day. Dan wakes up in a cage and has another great and cheeky scene with Carvanista. Dan also figures out Carvanista needs him alive, and Carvanista decides not to deal with him and leaves. 13 figures that the house shrinking was a trap, as Yaz yells at the Doctor for not telling the whole truth again. They're visited by Claire, who has seen them in her past, apparently taking the long way home. Claire sees them off, and in my favourite gag of the episode, the TARDIS doors end up in the wrong place. Here was probably my biggest problem in the episode, which is how fluent Yaz now seems to be in the workings of the TARDIS. Either years have passed between seasons, or this is a desperate script addition for Yaz to have something to do. Although, taking the ups with the downs, this episode features the return of the TARDIS hammer, which I like a lot. The Doctor checks her brain with what seems like a modified chameleon arch, due to the visions earlier, having another scrap with Yaz about what exactly they're doing. 13 finds temporal residue over Carvanista's ship, making it troublesome to get aboard. Meanwhile, Claire walks home and runs into our old friend, a weeping angel. The music here is honestly fantastic, and both the lighting and Claire's acting do sell the creepiness of the angel. While reciting the Doctor's ever-meaningful warning of don't blink, my only problem here is that even though the angel looks a little different, it only moves from its original stance for 1 second. Personally, I think the multitude of faces from angry to smug to blank add to the creepiness, but here it's just a little jarring for me, not particularly bad. Claire makes it inside, but fucks up at the last second, getting sent presumably back in time. At another new place, Outpost Rose, we see Vinda, who doesn't get much spotlight in this episode, but is pretty entertaining. He monitors this area of space, but notices an anomaly that is now eating planets. This is supposedly the Flux, and I have to say its effects are absolutely stunning, especially compared to Doctor Who's TV budget. Vinda sends a warning transmission out, and we are returned to our Arctic couple. Swarm descends on them and he murders the male, but it seems that the female was his partner in chaos under some sort of false identity or personality. Now back to this great design of Azure, Swarm's sister. Name's a bit on the nose, but it's not bad. 13 and Yaz infiltrate Carvanista's ship using a callback to the worst episode of last season. And while Yaz searches for Dan, 13 confronts Carvanista in a great back and forth. While telling him off, 13 switches topics and asks him to tell her everything he knows of the Division. Woo! Thank God that storyline wasn't dumped from the focus of 13's story. Honestly, I was a little afraid that it might happen and that they might only use it as background dressing like at the start of the episode. Yaz finds Dan and managed to rescue him while having a great meeting, especially with their responses from their origins. Carvanista refuses to answer the Doctor on the Division, as the last surviving member 13 can find. But she's distracted by a call signal, with Carvanista explaining that the 7 million ships are for rescuing each human from the incoming disaster, as his people are species bonded. This idea is a little wacky, but honestly I think it's great. This incoming disaster is what we saw earlier. The Flux, or as they say in their accent, the Flux. On its name we also get more great Shots of the Flux's destruction, as Vinder gives his final report before getting the hell out of Dodge from the incoming destruction. 13 gives Carvanista's power back, and the reason for the time disruption is given, as his ship was hit by a time distortion, meaning he picked up Dan a little earlier than expected. Cleverly, the ships can interlock into a survival structure for both species. A little peeved from his imprisonment, Dan yells at Carvanista, leading to, with miraculous timing, Carvanista's weapon powering on, and our now 3 heroes getting back to the TARDIS quite swiftly, as 13 and Dan get introduced to each other. Personally, I think Carvanista needs to do some facial grooming, because after around 22 shots, he hits nothing. Another strange TARDIS door later, Dan has his house back, and the Doctor is understandably quite angry about her lack of foresight regarding this event. Meanwhile, it seems some Sontarans have gotten wind of this event in their new and pretty classical design. I like the nice balance these two have between imposition and comedy, where between the 10th and 11th Doctor eras, they shifted from one extreme to the other, but I don't think this blend will be for everyone. These Sontarans are grateful for the suffering and damage brought by the Flux, and are paired with a decent score. The TARDIS picks up multiple points of the Flux, and Dan gets his first look outside the TARDIS with a green screen effect that conflicts me. With a warning from a welcome but honestly chilling cloister bell, the Flux scares the Doctor straight into another psychic connection. That looks fantastic, by the way, although we get a glimpse of the Flux eating other worlds, and boy does this shot rub me the wrong way. In this beautiful confrontation, Swarm talks with 13. He is impressed with the mind-wiping seen last season, as it is apparent that an older form, likely Joe Martin's Doctor, battled with Swarm. And now, in their final fight, he has the advantage of his memories. Very badass. Now the Flux targets our trio, and by many hammer hits, 13 gets the TARDIS to flee. The Doctor has the great idea of leading it to Earth, contacting Carvanista for help. Meanwhile, as Dan states, Diane is still waiting for him. She is then creepily called into this house that, honestly, the front looks a lot like the face of Wester Drumlins from Blink. This is a trap brought to us by Azure, as she and Diane are now held in this creepy-ass place. 13 has a plan, so in a tense and fast-paced scene, Carvanista configures his flux-resistant ships into a bubble around Earth. The TARDIS is being pulled and deteriorated further, so in a last-ditch effort, 13 opens the heart of the TARDIS, and it does absolutely nothing. Holy shit. This is a great way of setting up the stakes, as it even had me freaking out a little. In the final stretch of the episode, our loose strings for the rest of the season to cover are set up. Our 3 are in deep shit, Vinder is escaping his station, Claire apparates in another time, Williamson's tunnels blow smoke, Diane is understandably scared shitless, Carvanista is shocked, I guess, the Angel is still there, the Sontarans start an invasion, our villainous duo gives the camera a nice shot, and 13 gets a great line over a great musical piece, as the episode end music fades in and the Flux attacks. Overall, this episode was pretty good. 13 was great, Yaz seemed a little off, and I love Dan, and hope he continues to be a riot. The music was noticeably pretty good, even if it seemed a little loud at times. All minor characters were written pretty well, and unlike some Chibnall stories, the comedy was almost all well done. This episode does suffer a little from its need to set up the rest of the season, leaving a bit of an unfocused and incomplete feeling. But since this is a different type of season than usual, I can accept those slight flaws. The hints to the Division are great and welcome, continuing on from what I liked from last season, and all our villains from Swarm to the Angels were honestly well done, even if I did have some qualms about their presentation every now and then. I give Doctor Who Series 13, or Flux, Chapter 1, The Halloween Apocalypse, a 7.5 out of 10. Thank you everybody so much for watching my first review of Doctor Who Series 13. Please like the video if you liked it, comment below if you wish, and consider subscribing to the channel, and if you do, ring the notification bell, so that you're told every single time that I make an upload.
Once again, thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!
Toast. A little piece of toast. Because there's so much to choose from. There's brown bread, white bread, all sorts of wholemeal bread. It comes in funny packages with writing on the side.